blood, come the prince that was promised, and his will be the song of ice and fire.
Welcome back, Watchers Beyond the Wall. My name is Monica, and if you don't know who I am, I post videos pertaining to a Song of Ice and Fire content, and a little bit of whatever is on my mind. Here, we deep dive and overanalyze re-watching shows and movies over and over again to understand what the writer is trying to tell us. Without further ado, brace yourselves for rewatch. In the windswept and rugged lands of the Iron Islands, where the sea rolls in fervently, and life and death are depicted by the drowned god who reigns supreme. Revered and feared by the Ironborn, the drowned god is an entity of the sea.
The sea was stirring too. The waves grew larger as the wind rose, sending plumes of spray to crash against the longships. The drowned god wakes, thought Aaron. He could hear his voice wailing from the depths of the sea.
Whose domain captures the storms and reflections of the harsh land and unparalleled nature of the islands themselves. His worship is as ancient and as fearful as the waves that crash on the stony shore, and his presence is found in every storm, shipwreck, and tempest.
Bless him with salt. Bless him with stone.
What is dead may never die.
The drowned god is depicted as an enigmatic and powerful figure, embodying the merciless and capricious forces of the ocean. His religion, known as the faith of the drowned god, is marked by rituals and sacrifices, both savage and solemn. The most iconic of these practices includes the sacrosanct of drowning, within its followers believing that if you are drowned and submerged into water, you will be reborn in his image of their god, receiving a favor of strength and wellness. The Ironborn and the drowned god is more than just a deity. It is the embodiment of their maritime identity and warrior spirit. His teachings emphasize the value of strength, courage, and the acceptance of faith. Others illustrate this through tales of sea voyages, battles, and the harsh trials faced by those who conquer the sea. As the sea shapes the lives of the Ironborn, so does the drowned god shape their belief system and way of life.
I say we take Westeros. He glanced at the priest. All for the greater glory of our drowned god, to be sure.
How worship not only reflects their resilience for the sea, but also underscores the resilience and enduring spirit amidst the forces of nature that defines their world. The drowned god, known ominously as he who dwells beneath the waves, is feared and revered as a sea deity that is worshipped by the Ironborn of the Iron Islands within Westeros. The religion of the drowned god is ancient and powerful, predating that of the Andals and reave, who tried and failed to replace them with the faith of the Seven. The Ironborn are fierce and unruly pirates.
He saw war horns and leviathans and scythes, and everywhere the krakens great and golden. Beneath them, thralls and salt wives began to move about, stirring coals into new life and gutting fish for the captains and the kings to break their fast.
With the culture that dwells beneath that of the first men, some people believe that the Ironborn did not travel across the Arm of Dorne and was raised by the drowned god himself. The faith of the drowned god is unique to the Iron Islands, where he is seen as the creator of the sea and the father of the Ironborn. Believers hold that they were made in his hollow waters.
We were born from the sea, and to the sea we all return.
made in his likeness to reave, rape, and carve out kingdoms. The Ironborn strike to make their name known in fire and blood and song, claiming dominion over all the waters of the earth, making and yearning to return to the old ways, where men paid the iron price, taking what they wanted by force. In this dark religion, the drowned god is locked in a fervent battle with the storm god, a merciless entity who dwells in the sky above. The storm god is also depicted as hating mankind and all of its works, sending cruel winds, lashing rains, and thunderbolts striking down sailors and landfaring people alike.
The storm god drowned Naga's fire after the Grey King's death. Even the Grey King's great throne of fangs had been swallowed by the sea. Only Naga's bones endured to remind the Ironborn of all the wonders that had been.
Destroying castles and burning villages. For thousands upon thousands of years, these two mighty gods have waged war, castling a violent thrall for the dominion of the ocean itself. The Ironborn believe that the drowned god's power reigns across other traveled lands within the sea, yet they still yearn when they travel distant lands that their god will be revered and worshipped in those parts as well in the Iron Islands. They find solace in the notion that every drowned man strengthens the drowned god himself. In this faith of water and blood, the Ironborn continued their dark worship, drawing power from the depiction and dreams of a time where their god dominion will stretch unparalleled strength across the sea. Ironborn's culture. While many believe the Iron Islands are named from their splendor of ore, the Ironborn fervently maintain that their land's name is a reflection of their own unyielding nature. Spilling the blood of fellow Ironborn is forbidden, but drowning remains an acceptable method of execution, maintaining a brutal sense of justice amongst their own.
When he opened his hand, the man's limp body flopped to the deck. Longwater Pike and Tom Tidewood chucked it over the rail, another offering to the drowned god.
Literacy is a rarity, with those who can read are often viewed as suspicious or weak. Others are dubbed as sorcerers. In a tradition echoing the northern mountain clans, many notable houses in the Ironborn eschews the title Lord, referring to their house name alone, such as the Skewers or the Stonehouse. Balon Greyjoy, amongst many titles, is most notably known as the Greyjoy. Aeron Greyjoy refers to Marilyn Morden as the Morlin, though Morlin adopts the mainland title of Lord. This defined seafaring people remained bound by ancient traditions.
Let these girls be reborn in light, undefiled by mortal lust, or let them descend to the drowned god's watery halls, to feast and dance and laugh until the seas dry up.
Their harsh lives intertwine with that of the merciless sea, a testament to their own enduring spirit, and the unforgiving nature of their homelands shapes countless lives of Ironborn. Prominent Ironborn who have greater connection to the mainland of Westeros are more than likely accompanied by maesters, singers, and knights than their adversaries of thralls or salt wives. Old ways. The old way is a chilling and defiant term used amongst Ironborn, an ancient and savage tradition of reaving and raping, a grim monarchy of the Ironborn seizing whatever they desire, wealth, women, or glory, through ruthless ambitions.
The better part of a century would pass before the Kraken woke, yet the dreams never died, for the priest still stood knee-deep in the salt sea, preaching of the old way,
The raiders were terrified across the sea. Their names struck fear in the hearts who heard it. This was the Iron Price, a brutal testament of their way of life. House Fairman of Fair Isle Bear has a deep-seated animosity and hatred towards the Ironborn. How their women had to practice and hold up arms of House Mormont of Bear Island because of the ruthless raiders of Ironborn raids. Their homeland, continuously sacked by Ironborn, have a hard resolve and have shed countless lives because of Ironborn attack.
Old men still told tales of days gone by, when the Ironborn were rich and proud, and every oarsman had a dozen salt wives to warm his bed by night.
The era of the old ways was brutally demolished when King Aegon Targaryen conquered the Seven Kingdoms in a fervent act of fiery vengeance, obliterating the King Harren who resided in Harrenhal. The cataclysmic event of Harrenhal is known throughout the Seven Kingdoms and is feared in present-day Game of Thrones, a testament of a dragon's wrath and the Targaryens' willingness to dismantle whoever stands in their way. However, despite the determination, the Ironborn still yearn for their former glory days of restoring the old ways.
The priest had dreamed the same dream when first he'd seen the red comet in the sky. We shall sweep over the green lands with fire and sword, root out the 7 gods of the Septons and the white trees of the Northmen.
I mean, think about it this way. The North raised up arms against the South and declared themselves an independent kingdom because the dragons were dead. Why wouldn't the Ironborn do the same? Fear and blood maintained stability over the kingdom, according to Robert Baratheon, but the kingdom was only forged because of the fiery breath of Aegon's fallen enemies with Balerion the Black Dread. With dragons holding weight and power over the 7 kingdoms, or at least Targaryens being feared enough to not be overthrown, a monarchy can only last so long when their legacy is snuffed out in a couple generations. We see this in countless uprisings and the attempt to restore the old ways, spearheaded by Lord Dagon and Balon Greyjoy, has attempted and failed the recoming of the old ways. Yet, whispers of rebellion and the promise to return to their ancient customs still echo amongst the Iron Men. The hunger for the old ways burns as fervently as it did then. Thralls or Thralldoms. Although slavery is outlawed in Westeros, the Ironborn get away with a different form of trading within thralls. In my opinion, thralls are slaves, especially when you think about the Dothraki custom. Dothrakis don't believe in slaves, but holding a person against their will and using them as property, that's slaves. We can put a fancy word on it and call it what you will.
There were no slaves in the Iron Islands, only thralls. A thrall was bound to service, but he was not chattel. His children were born free, so long as they were given to the drowned god, and thralls were never bought nor sold for gold. A man paid the iron price for thralls, or else had none. There should be thralls, or...
In the savage world of the Iron Islands, captains taken during raids are cast into a harsh and unforgiving world, known as thralls, bonded to their captor in perpetual servitude. Unlike the slaves from the free cities, those thralls are not mere property. They are afforded microscopical grams of freedom, allowing them to marry and bear children. Yet their offsprings will be born of the Iron Islands, are bounded by the Ironborn legacy, their lives forever intertwined with their captor's fate. Most male thralls are consigned to the gruelous labor of fields or mines, where they toil away their lives and are often cut short due to the harsh conditions of the mines. Those who have learning capability and literacy skills are spared the most arduous of tasks, serving as stewards, tutors, or scribes. Skilled craftsmanship, such as stone masons, a grand prize, and their talents are considered invaluable.
On the Iron Islands, She had seen priests of her own people slit the throats of thralls and give their bodies to the sea to honor the drowned god. Brutal as that was, this was worse.
Amongst the most horrible tales, it is the most fairest and youngest girls who are chosen to become salt wives. In a brutal ritual performed by a priest of the drowned god, the girl is wed to her captor. This tradition is not just a union, but a symbol of dominance and power. A man may claim multiple salt wives, and each will be a willing testament to his wealth, strength, and adversaries. The children born from such union are not considered bastards, but are in line for such heir. Their right of inheritance will come about as soon as their father dies. Without any surviving heirs from a free-born rockwife to succeed them on his deathbed, those sons born to him by a salt wife are considered true-born heirs. This macabre display of the thrall's life and upkeep shows the brutality of the Iron Islands and the life that they have to endure when they are intertwined with their captors. Military. The Ironborn take fearsome pride within their battle prowess and their sacred freedom, living by a code of unyielding relentless from the sea itself, seafaring at heart, and the resolve of bravery upon such open water, especially when it comes to the unwavering legacy that endures from the Iron Islands. Once their razors are set to sea and are striking terror in the hearts of the western lands and the riverlands. Their sails are formidable, coming in packs of longship. Their men are dubbed the wolves of the sea. Fearlessness of drowning, the Ironborn fight with a grim resolve, clad in armor even on the heavy docks of their longship, most comfortable on the rugged rocks and wooden planks of their longships. They do not like saddles and are less comfortable with them. Their horsebacking skills are not up to par with the other great houses. Their warriors lack the dispute or the withstand of a cavalry charge. Each Ironborn lord commands a flotilla of about 100 ships, but these vassals are smaller and more rudimentary compared to the mainland ships. Those long ships are akin to Viking longboats of old, cutting through the water with a grieved swiftness. But the true terror lies within the Iron Fleet, a formidable adversary of 100 ships on those three most formidable compared to any fleet of Westeros. This naval force underscores the commander of the Lord Captain of the Iron Fleet. It's a grim display of the Ironborn steadfastness within their sea might. Designed for battle, any vassal when it comes to war galleys in both speed and strength, though they are dwarfed by the war drummings of the mainland. Each vassal of the Iron Fleet is 3 times the size of any typical longship of individual lords. The Ironborn, fiercely independent, hold true to the old ways and the drowned god, often butting heads with the faith of the Seven. However, they have few knights among them, which is a tradition of the Andals. Notable exceptions include Sir Harris Howlord and Sir Alibor Rynch, whose valor in battle echoes the fierce determination of his people. Priests. The priests of the Iron Islands worship the drowned god and fervently oppose his rival, the storm god.
The vision he spoke of was doubtless a snare set by the storm god to lure the Ironborn to destruction.
Their rituals are a macabre display of the sea itself. Followers are symbolically drowned by giving salt water poured over their heads or their body. Submerged by a priest, some, like the fervent Aegon Greyjoy, believe as a true believer you must be drowned completely and be given the kiss of life. Those who are are able to survive this heraldry sacrifice will be known as drowned men, disciples of a faith as old and as yielding.
The notion filled Victarion with disgust. No true son of the sea would want to rot beneath the ground. How would he ever find the drowned gods' watery halls to drink and feast for all eternity?
As the ocean itself, the priest of the Iron Islands lives a solitary life, wandering the island barefoot, clad in salt water-soaked robe. Their traditions are oral, and many cannot read, relying instead on ancient stories and things that have been told from them through generations. Lords and small folk are likely to give them shelter, and their diet exists of mostly fish. Most priests bathe in the saltiness of the sea and drink a mouthful of salt water to give them strength. They are known for upholding the old ways, fervent devotion, paying the iron price, and a prophet of their god. They perform ritual sacrifices and ceremonies such as marriages, funerals, and making men the drowned men of the moat. Drowned men. In the eerie depths of the Iron Islands, the followers of the drowned god underscore and endure a eerie baptism of a ritual known as the drowning of men. Salt water is poured over their heads as priests embark the deity. Bless this servant with salt. Bless him with stone. Bless him with steel. Let him be born again from the sea as you were. The initiate then echoes this haunting creed. What is dead may never die.
But when the waves broke over his head, they reminded him once more that that man was dead. I was reborn from the sea, a harder man and stronger. No mortal man could frighten him, no more than the darkness could, nor the bones of his soul, the grey and grisly bones of his soul.
But for the priest of Euron Greyjoy, however, this ritual continues. He then fully submerges his disciple in salt water, pulling them back on the brink of death and giving him the kiss of life. Not all survive, but with Euron's resolve, many will fail, but many can't be drowned men. His drowned men are clad in scrubs of robe of green, greys, and blues, the color of the drowned god, bared within driftwood, clad in battle, ready to show their fervency and devotion of the drowned god. They carry skins of salt water for ritual and to quench their unyielding thirst. As Aegon Greyjoy baptized 4 new drowned men, he receives dire news that his brother Balon is dead.
The storm god, in his wrath, plucked Balon from his castle and cast him down. Yet now he feasts beneath the waves in the drowned god's watery halls.
The drowned men fervently declared their loyalty, calling Aegon the king. But Aegon, steadfast within his faith, refuses and asserts that they must summon a kingsmouth. This shows just how willing he is to pass over the titles of not only inheritance, but also what his own people want him to do for the sake of his reverency within his faith. Ritual drowning. The drowned god of the Iron Islands is sheltered in mystery and foreboding, with no temples, holy books, or idols to mark his presence. The Ironborn whisper prayers to Lord God who drowns for us, embarking his name in their darkest moments. Each man is believed to receive a gift from the drowned god, a talent that explores his own traits. Boldness is revered, while being a coward is punished. When the seas turn and the waves crash and monstrous tides begin, the Ironborn say the drowned god has awoken. In this grim faith, even thralled children are born free if they give themselves over to their drowned god. The Ironborn believe it is him who determines who sits on the sea stone chair.
If you will not bestir yourself to remove the crow's eye from the sea-stone chair, I must take the task upon myself.
Assuring it will never be a woman or a godless man. The priest's unwielding power will summon all Ironborn captives to Naga's Hill.
You have no ships, no swords. I have my voice, the priest replied, and the god is with me.
On Oldwick for a kingsmouth to withhold a pressing matter of who will be the lord or king of the Iron Island. The priest of the drowned god performs rituals. They drown men and bring them to life using the kiss of life. This ritual for the drowned god shows the sacrifice and the survivalment of the sea, as you are reborn from salt and sea. As the priests breathe in the life from the drowned man, others gather chanting prayers. Newborn children are often given to the drowned god shortly after birth. Some priests advocate for the full submersion, but others just dump the newborn's head into a tub of sea water, marking the first occurrence through the new generation of the god of sea. Every Ironborn lives and dies with the splendor of the Iron Islands. The drowned god is in every fiber of their being. Every wave that crashes, every stone turn within the Iron Islands echoes his solemn prayer and plead to shelter his own people, forever bound by the salty sea and the coldness and rugged terrain, death. The drowned god allows sacrifice in many different kinds. Ritual sacrifices can be anywhere from drowned man becoming cleansed with the salty water, or a blood sacrifice where you can slit the throat of a thrall and send their body in the ocean waves. This could be to temper a storm or to receive blessings from any kind. Upon an Iron Man's death, it is whispered that the drowned god has called him to his hallowed hall. His watery hall consists of feasting and drinking amongst mermaids.
After he went over the side, however, most like the man had drowned. May he feast as he fought in the drowned god's watery halls.
It is believed that the Ironborn must not be buried in the ground. No true son of the sea would want to rot away in the ground. In other words, the drowned god's realm lies beneath the ocean. If you put an Ironborn and buried him, he would not be able to find the sea. Priests of the drowned god resolve in the code of not to spill blood of fellow Ironborn, rather to drown them instead of spilling their blood is a fine way of executioning. Another sacrifice could be seen as drowning. A fine resolve of blessing of the drowned god is the final gift, and to honor him, leaving behind the life of oneself to the sea is the best sacrifice you could give. Ancient history. While maesters argue that the Ironborn are descended from first men, the priests of the drowned gods proclaim their people emerged from the sea itself, telling stories of the Grey King.
Yet the Grey King had slain her, and the drowned god had changed her bones to stone, so that men might never cease to wonder at the courage of the first of kings.
And ancient ravers from the Age of Heroes with pride and valor. Among the priests, Gandalf Whitestand stands out from calling a kingsmouth that names Oren Grey Iron High King of the Iron Island.
From that day to this, the Lord Reapers of House Greyjoy have ruled the Iron Islands from the sea-stone chair on Pike. None since the Red Kraken has posed a true threat to the Seven Kingdoms or the Iron Throne, but few can truly be described as leal and faithful servants of the crown.
Priests denounced Erwin IV, the Good Brother, for seizing the crown in Torgon Grey Iron's absence, leading to a bloody Kingsmouth where Aaron Grey Iron slaughtered 500 priests and prophets, establishing House Grey Iron as the hereditary kings. The priests arduously disposed House Hor for their alliance with the Andals and the faith of the Seven, commanding that their black blood turn cloaks to their own faith. During Aegon's conquest, King Harren met a fiery end at Harrenhal. In the chaos that followed, 2 scorned priests crowned Lattice at Old Wick, and the would-be king called for krakens to destroy Aegon's fleet. Well, no sea monsters appeared. Lattice weighed down with stones, walking into a sea to follow and seek out his father, the drowned god. The priest's fury fled when Lord Vicken Greyjoy allowed the return of the faith of the Seven toward the Iron Islands. After Lord Goran Greyjoy was killed by Luggith, the twice drowned in 37 AC, King Aerys Targaryen permitted the Sept expulsion from the island. Maester Barracks later studied the priests' beliefs and customs, while Balon Greyjoy proclaimed himself king of the Iron Island. Taros of Thrice Drowned placed a driftwood crown upon his head, a symbol of their unparalleled and unmatching resolve with their faith. Following the events of Greyjoy's rebellion, Aerion Greyjoy's near-death experience in a storm led him to a spiritual reawakening. Surviving the shipwreck, he dedicated himself as a priest of the drowned gods. Revered in his true belief system of the drowned gods, he spreads the belief system within the Ironborn, showing that the drowned god has not forgotten about them, and through trials and tribulations, their priests and their faith will endure. Andals. The Andal invasion tried to indoctrinate the Iron Islands and bringing the faith of the Seven, although this change did not go over well. According to Grand Maester Harwin, these newcomers did not understand the practices of the drowned god and the dedication of Iron Men within their ferocity and unwielding strength and determination within their sacred god.
Euron's blasphemies will bring down the drowned god's wrath upon us all. Aaron had prophesied back on Old Wyke.
A tense coexistence endured, but with the Seven and the drowned god still fighting over the land still in present-day Game of Thrones. Although the Andals intermarried within the Iron Islands, the faith still holds no sway. The faith of the drowned god remains the steadfast and sole faith throughout the Iron Islands.
So he had the Gascari captain bound hand and foot and thrown overboard, a sacrifice to the drowned god. Your red god will have his due, he promised Makaro, but the seas are ruled by the drowned god.
Over time, most Andals recounted and chose the drowned gods' common islander ways. Harren was the first king who had married an Andal, marking a significant unification of the cultural differences. The priests of the drowned gods saw the king of Hall as an ungodly usurper. Hall suggested that the priests' animosity stemmed from allowing the faith of the Seven to take root within the Iron Islands for the first time. Under the reign of Wath Widowmaker, the first sept of the Iron Islands was made on Great Wick. The tensions began to rise as his grandson, Horgon, sanctioned the construction of a second sept on Old Wick. This act sparked a bloody rebellion incited by the the priest. The sept was put on blaze, torn apart, and dismembered. The worshippers were drowned in the sea. Ultimately, some priests tried to find a foothold or an understanding within the faith, dubbing the drowned god as one of the 8 gods. But after the Andals heard of this and displeased by the disfigurement of their 7 gods, they said that the drowned god was not an aspect of their gods and was not an 8th god. Because of this, they did not want anything to do with the Andals. King Aegon Targaryen, also known as the Conqueror. King Halleck of Hole, known of the Isles and the rivers, spent most of his days in the Riverlands, only paying notable homestead of the drowned god. However, his reign was overshadowed by a dark legacy of his son, King Harren the Black. Harren met his fiery end in Harrenhal during Aegon's conquest, leaving the Iron Islands in chaos. Sieging this moment, the priest Legis boldly proclaimed himself the living son of the drowned god, stirring the hearts of many Ironborn. In the power vacuum following Viken Greyjoy's descent as Lord of the Iron Islands, bowing to the tides of change, recognizing King Aegon Targaryen's support of the faith, Viken allowed the faith to return to the Isles. Yet the faith did not recoil the Ironborn's fervor within their own deity. In 37 AC, a dramatic revulsion erupted, led by a man proclaiming to be Lettuce the twice drowned, rising from watery halls of the drowned god.
One such was Dalton Greyjoy, the wild young son of the heir to Pike and the Iron Islands. Of him Hake writes, "He loved 3 things, the sea, his sword, and women. A fearless child, headstrong and hot-tempered, he is said to have been rowing at 5 and reaving at 10.
Lord Groran Greyjoy, Viken's son, crushed the uprising with a brutal display of power, sending Lettuce's head to King Aerys Targaryen in response of the King's Goran's permission to quell the sept and sparrows from the island, ensuring that the faith's influence would be subdued for another century. Tensions between the old way and the new simmered during the Dance of the Dragon, when Sir Tywin Lannister, the Hand of the King of Aegon III, known as Rhaenyra's son, demanded that Lord Mootin Greyjoy return his women that were captive but are also called salt wives during this war. Mootin, known as the Red Kraken, refused, declaring that he only vows and proclaims fervency to the drowned god and serves him between a man, and only him and his salt wives can determine what happens to them.
He still needs me to fight his battles, though, Victorian insisted. Wizards may be well and good, but blood and steel win wars.
The Ironborn's fierce independency is shown in this macabre display of justice. Recent events in the main series. The Ironborn believe that the Red Comet is a divine flame brought forth from the drowned god, proclaiming that it is a symbol, the rising tide for their people. Aerion Greyjoy proclaims that it's a celestial sign, called forth to rise all Ironborn men to seed within flame and sword, proclaiming as did their ancestors.
The captains and the kings raised Euron up, but the common folk shall tear him down. I shall go to Great Wyke, to Harlaw, to Orkmond, to Pike itself. In every town and village shall my words be heard. No godless men may sit the sea-stone chair.
Feeling as though it is a sign to spread the legions of the drowned god and the old ways. Aeron continues his practices at Great Wyke, performing the kiss of life on drowned men. The death of his brother, Balon Greyjoy, king of the island and the north, makes it so that Aeron must call a kingsmouth because he cannot be king, because being a priest prohibits it. The gathering following leaders are entered into a Kingsmouth, Aegon proclaims that the eldest brother, Euron Greyjoy, should not be king as he's unworthy and godless. Ultimately, Euron is chosen to be the next king of the Ironborn, established on Naga's cradle.
Naga had been the first sea dragon, the mightiest ever to rise from the waves. She fed on krakens and leviathans, and drowned whole islands in her wrath.
Aegon suspects dark forces at play and believes Euron used wizards and sorcery to sway the Ironborn to vote for him. Meanwhile, Victorian Greyjoy upholds the brutal traditions of his faith. He sacrifices captains of the Gith's Dawn by throwing them overboard as an offering to the drowned god. After slaying a fisherman, his followers Longwater, Pike, and Tommen Tidewood offer his body to the sea. However, when Makor heals his wounds on his hand, Victorian begins to honor R'hllor in addition to the drowned god. In a grim display of devotion, he sacrifices slave girls by burning them alive on a fishing skit across the Slaver's Bay.
Your drowned god is a demon, the black priest, Makaro said afterwards, is no more than a thrall of the other, the dark god whose name must not be spoken.
The Ironborn's faith in the drowned god remained steadfast, intertwining with their brutal way of life from celestial omens to blood sacrifice. Their belief drives them to seek dominion and spread terror across the sea, resulting their legacy of the drowned god. It's edged within fire and blood and salt water. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and I just wanted to let you guys know that I see all the comments and I see all the positive feedback I'm getting back. I'm trying my best on pronouncing certain words right and trying to continue my sentences and make it sound better. I record for long periods of time and my words just get jumbled up. I love all of the comments you guys are leaving, and I will be making follow-up videos. I hope you guys enjoy today's video. Watchers beyond the wall, I'm out.